Hi, Dr. Tracy Tyson. I'm a board certified general pediatrician for over 20 years, and I'm making a series on each change from the CDC vaccination schedule in 2026 compared to the previous one in the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended vaccination schedule. We did one already on hepatitis B, so if you're interested, you can go back and listen to that one, and I'll try to put them all in a folder together. This one, we're going to talk about the rotavirus vaccination, which is a vaccination in the United States that was routinely recommended to all babies, starting at the earliest 6 weeks of age, the latest 12 weeks of age. But it's given in a series of 3, typically at your 2-month visit, your 4-month visit, and your 6-month visit. It is an oral vaccination, and it is because that's the best way that it works, because rotavirus is a virus that gives you gastroenteritis or vomiting and diarrhea. So the immunity being in the GI tract, that was the best way to give that vaccination. It is the 2nd generation vaccination. There was a previous one that was pulled in post-marketing analysis due to safety issues. It was not seen in the studies when they first did the vaccination, but in post-marketing analysis, it was shown to increase the risk of a common pediatric problem called intussusception by 1%. So even that 1% increase, they said, nope, you can't sell this anymore in the United States. They went back to the drawing board, made a completely new vaccination that has now been out since 2005. And so we've had that vaccination for over 20 years, and it's been extremely successful. So why did the CDC change the recommendation from routinely to high-risk people? We don't know, because here's the deal. In the United States, high-risk individuals are children under the age of 2. That is the risk. And it is only given to children under 8 months of age. It actually can't be given past 8 months of age. So it's one of those vaccines that if you delay, because maybe you're like, well, my child isn't in daycare, they don't have any other siblings, my husband and I are of the age, we've been vaccinated for rotavirus, so we're unlikely to spread it to them, so we're not going to give it. But then all of a sudden your situation changes, or you have another baby, or you have a friend have to take care of them because you're in the hospital and their child gets rotavirus. It's not something you can do later. And that was because the safety studies showed that you really couldn't give it past 8 months of life. And so there's a short window where this vaccination works. So what are the risks of rotavirus? So rotavirus actually had over 100,000 admissions in the United States a year. This was a brutal virus, still is. It's just not as common now because of vaccination. So this virus wreaked havoc. I have another video on stories about rotavirus that I had as a resident, and it was just brutal. It caused so much vomiting and diarrhea, so much dehydration. It caused death in older children who had chronic medical problems, but the big spreaders of it were the babies, especially in daycare centers. And so this is something my grandmother at 95 years of age actually died from rotavirus. And so it's not something that just affected babies. That was just getting them in that age group, then protected them lifelong. So had my grandmother had this vaccination as a child, she would not have died from that. So this virus has been almost completely eliminated in the United States, so much so for that it's hard to get a test for it because it's just so uncommon that we're not routinely testing for it. I, as a pediatrician, have not admitted a child for any form of gastroenteritis in over a decade. And so it definitely made a huge difference. It decreased our healthcare costs. It decreased parents having to call out of work. It decreased hospitalizations. It certainly decreased deaths. And it's been really successful with a very low rate of side effects. It's extremely well tolerated. It can cause some mild vomiting and diarrhea itself, because if you remember, every vaccination is inducing an immune response. So your body thinks you're sick and it sends white blood cells and its immune system to the gastrointestinal tract. So certainly babies can have some vomiting and diarrhea. In over 20 years, I can give you my personal experience. You can look up the statistics for yourself, but I've never seen a significant complication from the rotavirus vaccination. And everything that I have seen has been really mild and much less than the risk of the illness itself. So why did the recommendation change? We don't know. I think it's because some countries don't routinely recommend it. They only give it to high-risk individuals. But high risk in the United States is every child under 2 years of age. And so that is what we are already doing. So if your child is under 8 months of age and they're born in the United States, they are at high risk for rotavirus. Now, going to daycare certainly increases your risk, but there's not zero risk by not going to daycare. Being an only child in the home has lesser risk, although that doesn't decrease their risk to zero. And so everything we do in public health is to try and get to that herd immunity. So if you have high risk individuals, but you don't have 95% of a population around them protected for that illness, then the way that the vaccine works is less effective. So you're going to get a bunch more breakthrough cases. And with breakthrough cases, you're going to get increased hospitalization, increase morbidity and mortality, which is complications and death, and increase healthcare dollars. And so in the United States, the science did not support changing the recommendations from all babies to high-risk babies, because in the United States, all babies are high risk for complications from rotavirus. In other countries, that might be different, right? But that's not the numbers that we have in the United States. So again, talk to your child's provider about whether or not the rotavirus vaccination is needed and warranted, but we are still recommending it for everyone because the science didn't dictate this change, politics did. If you have any specific questions about the rotavirus virus itself or the vaccination, feel free to ask, but also talk to your medical provider because we are here for you and we want to make sure that your children are as healthy and happy as possible. Take care.